Hi everyone, my name's PK and here I have Duane with me from New South Wales, just outside Port Macquarie, and he's a client of the Property Investment Accelerator. He's bought just recently a terrific property in regional Queensland. Real quick, the numbers are purchase price $379,000, so very affordable type of property in a suburb where, like, honestly, there's like 10, 20 buyers agent. Everyone's just trying to buy in the suburb, and he's got a great deal. Just rented out for $495 a week. So that yield is almost touching 7%, and it has subdivision potential. So in this video, we'll go through how he got this property. We'll talk about subdivision and his options there. We'll talk about how he invested interstate, completely remotely, relying on various team members, how to interact with those team members, and just generally, how he's building wealth through property. So if you're interested in that, carry on watching. And Duane, I know that we've already been chatting, but congratulations. You've done a terrific job, and thank you for making time for this today.
Thank you, PK. I really appreciate the invite.
No, I really appreciate you making time. So that's really cool of you. Maybe we'll just start from the start with your permission. So what was your property background before buying this property? Like, had you already bought property, or do you have your principal place of residence, or like what kind of got you into this?
Yeah, a few years ago, I actually got stung by a property, like a buyer's agent company way up north, and that kind of put me off for a little while. So I've never had a principal place of residence. I've had an investment property in the past that we've had that for a few years, but it really did nothing for us. But in recent years, I'm not getting any younger, so feeling that it's time to really think about how do I provide for my family after retirement, which is still over a decade away, thankfully. But so the pressure was sort of mounting in my own mind to actually do something. And I've seen people win and lose at crypto. I've had a little bit of experience with shares, and I don't really like playing with those, although they work really well for some people, not my thing. And so property, I just kept coming back to it. And I made a comment back in 2020 to my partner saying, look, with this pandemic, the property market's going to do nothing, and it did the exact opposite. And that really brought home to me that I just know nothing. So I needed some serious education, and so started searching for that. And as you so often say in your videos, there's a lot of sharks out there in the property market. And after the experience that I had a few years ago, everything I came across was treated with suspicion. But I kept coming back to your Facebook group and thinking, there's something here. There really is. And so it's been a really great experience.
Yeah, thank you, man. I know. I remember, like, in the middle of 2020, I was producing videos, and I was doing posts on my Facebook group and kind of sharing how I thought, based on previous events and where similar things happened, with unemployment going up very suddenly, shocks in the world, where the property market did really well, partly due to quantitative easing. I remember like hundreds of comments back then saying, oh, this, obviously I'm selling a course, right? So people have suspicions, oh, you're just trying to sell a course, property market's going to crash. I won't get it right every time, right? But I do remember there was a lot of skepticism back then, and but here we are. It's done what it's done. I guess for everyone else's education, please don't you don't have to kind of dwell on the buyer's agent side of things, but you mentioned you bought a property through a buyer's agent, also by yourself, I think you said, and it didn't really do what it needed to do. Like, for everyone else's education, what were the lessons you learned from the previous times you bought property that other people should watch out for or avoid?
I guess when you go to a free property seminar and there's a desk down the back, and people, we've got these great deals for you. You've got to act now. We've only got a limited supply. Well, that kind of pressure, ignore it, walk away. Because if someone's trying to pressure you into doing something quickly, you're in the wrong place. There is time. There will be another property next week in your chosen location, or next month, if not next week. You don't have to rush a decision. It's a huge decision, and it's a lot of money, and don't let someone else pressure you into parting with it.
Yeah. No, well said. And then sort of fast forward, right? You did the course, you became educated, hopefully you gained some confidence in what you were doing. How did you kind of build enough confidence in, let's say, the local property managers, because you bought in regional Queensland from regional New South Wales?
Yep.
How'd you build confidence in like the right communication with sales agents, building and pest inspectors, property managers, quantity surveyors, etc.? Like, what was that experience like? And I'm asking this question because in the context is everyone's scared of buying interstate because they're like, oh, how do I trust those local people? I can't touch the property. What if something goes wrong? How did you overcome those sort of things?
Yeah, great question. I guess there's contacts provided within the course. So started there with the actual sales agents. I had the first sales agent that I contacted also had a property arm within that agency, a property management arm. And they were, oh, we can sell you, we can manage it for you, we can do all this. I'm thinking, I don't know that that's a really good idea. And so I asked some questions on the forum, and people came back and said, yeah, make sure that you get a different property manager to inspect a sale. And that was really great advice. So I thought that was going to actually cause a bit of friction with that sales agent, but they accepted that. Like when they had a good property that I wanted to look at, I said, look, I really want someone else to look at it. They were like, okay, yeah, we can see where you're coming from. So that was good. Then with the property manager side and all the other team members that you recommend, each one I'd ask them a bunch of questions and see if they struck me as being fair income, and they all did. And so it was a really good experience, and particularly the property manager, like they are so crucial to the whole process. They're recommending, for example, the building and pest inspector, because I don't know who's good up there. And so building that trust by asking a lot of questions and then relying on their advice. And where possible, double check for sure, but they were such good professionals that after a lot of questions, there was a good trust and rapport there. So yeah, it was a matter of, with the course, just going through the steps, like you do the module, the action steps at the end, finish that. And by the time you've done all that research, you're starting to see just how much thought has gone into it and how much research. And that in itself builds confidence that, hey, we're onto something here. So
Sure,
yeah.
sure. No, it's a great point around asking questions. Like, don't just go and use a team member that I recommend willy-nilly. You should learn to do your due diligence. But anyone who's watching as well, there's no harm in asking questions. Like if you're ringing up a property manager or any team member, like ask them the question. Don't be shy. The worst they can say is like, oh mate, I have to go. Like you've been on the phone with me for like 20 minutes. That's the worst that can happen. Unless you satisfy your questions, you're not going to be confident. So that's a great tip. And I guess one question I had as well was like around analysis paralysis. A lot of people get stuck and they keep going round and round because a lot of data, a lot of free information out there, a lot of misinformation, contradictory opinions. I don't know what your answer to this is going to be, but is that something that you were experiencing before the course? And if so, like, did the course help that, or did the course just bombard you with more research to do and you're even more confused?
Yeah. Before the course, my research was focused on education. Like I knew that I needed some help to know what I was doing. Like I said, about 2020, I got that prediction so wrong. I thought, well, clearly I'm not the person that should be going out on their own and just having a go. So it was actually, I think it's week 2 when you are doing the SUBURB analysis. I actually got a bit of paralysis there, and I was looking and redoing the searches and changing the parameters of the searches and all that sort of thing. So I got kind of stuck there. But in the end, I sat down one day and I thought, I've got to get through this and I've got to move on. So did the search again, came up with a set of criteria, a set of suburbs that had nearly all green. And that said, right, these are the suburbs I'm going to focus on. Let's move on. And interestingly, one of those suburbs where I actually started my search, one of the next things that you do is go and look for things like bushfires and flood zones, and this whole suburb was flood prone. I was like, nope, that's it. Forget that one. Moving on.
Yeah, that's funny. No, but
Yeah.
the suburb that you did find, I did a post recently in the Facebook group, and then I had like 100 people DM me because I mentioned it was my favorite suburb, and that is the suburb. So I'm very, very
Oh, wow.
bullish.
Okay.
Very, very bullish on where you've bought. And it's also has subdivision potential. So I think you mentioned in your email to me that a couple of houses down or next door, it's the same sort of shape and size block of land, and they've actually subdivided it. What are your plans for this property? Because it is more than 1,000 square meters. There is precedence for subdivision in the street. Well, you're sitting on, I wouldn't say like a gold mine, right? But you're sitting on something very valuable now. What's your approach for that?
Yeah, as you say, the two properties on one side, they've actually built a driveway down the middle fence dividing those two properties, and then they've got mirror image houses at the back that have been recently built. So those two properties are dimensionally almost identical to this one. So the home that we've got it's a little bit set back from the street, but it's offset to one side. So there's plenty of room for a driveway down the side there. Without any building works or any of that, all you really need to do is put up a small fence and build at the back.
Like a battle axe? It'll be like a battle axe, like a driveway going at the back and then a dwelling behind the existing dwelling, or side by side?
Yeah, that's what it would be. No, not side by side. You'd put a long driveway down between two fences, and then you'd have another dwelling at the back, probably driveway to one side, garage to one side and the house on the other, type of thing. So there's plenty of room to do that, which is fantastic. It's a rectangular block, relatively long, so plenty of space for that, and two decent sized blocks at the end of around 500 square meters. So
nice.
The plans at the moment, I'm still forming. We've only just settled a week ago, so still thinking about that. The next step, obviously, will be to call the council, speak to the town planner or somebody, and say, hey, what are the options? Can I divide? Can I put two dwellings on one? What are those options? I don't really want to build a second house there, but if there's a second block that we can sit on and let the growth happen, that might be a really good thing to do, or even have that option down the track at some point if we're getting to the point where we need or want to purchase another place. That might be a great way to generate equity. So either through a refinance or through a sale of a vacant lot.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think one question that often comes in people's minds is like, you haven't bought in Brisbane. It's not a capital city. It's a regional center with a population of less than 100,000, diversified economies doing really well, continue to do well. Some people have it in their mind that regional areas are harder to find a tenant. Like, you've bought for 379,000. I get these people asking me all the time. They're like, PK, why on earth would someone pay $500 a week for a $379,000 property in a regional area? Like, why wouldn't they just buy it? Because it's cheaper to buy than it is to rent on a monthly basis. Well, I mean, what was your experience in getting it rented? Was that difficult? Did you have to wait weeks? This is kind of like, I know the answer, but I'm asking you anyway. I'm just trying to demystify this hang up that people have.
Yeah, look, I've spent the vast majority of my life living in regional and remote and very remote locations, so perhaps I'm not as scared of that kind of thing as what a city person would be. With this particular property, the property manager's been really proactive. The initial suburb selection, one of the data factors that you look at is the vacancy rate, and it's actually 0.33%. So I wasn't too worried about that right from the get-go. The property manager was proactive. She actually has a company which imports workers from overseas, and they rent a whole bunch of properties from her. And she rang me up about a week and a half before settlement and said, hey, they want to offer you a little bit more than the assessed rental for a 12-month lease, and they'll be having middle-aged workers in there We've got a whole host of other properties rented through them. We've never had a maintenance problem or a damage problem or anything like that. What do you reckon? And so we said, yeah, that sounds great. And so the lease commenced the day of settlement. So that, it's no
Zero vacancy.
Zero vacancy.
Yeah. That's what we like to see. That's an ideal outcome. It doesn't, that's not average for anyone who's watching. Like that's a really good outcome. I think average, for clients who are buying in that area would be probably like 3 or 4 days vacancy after settlement, which isn't the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination, but no, you've done really well. And last question for me, like obviously today is the 6th of December. So the RBA has just risen rates again by 25 basis points, taking them to just over 3%. I reckon, for what it's worth, there'll be probably one more rate rise unless something dramatic changes. A lot of banks think the same thing, but there is a lot of, zeitgeist or, the kind of mood in the environment is uncertainty. The world is going into a recession, or at least US and Europe are more likely to go into it. Australia, probably not. But inflation, it's coming down, but it's still quite high. There's uncertain times. Like you've just bought, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, your first investment property after you sold the last one or the last two off. What's your own personal feeling now that you've got tens of thousands of dollars of debt, good debt, but debt nonetheless? Duane, what's your own personal feeling about your own property portfolio, the ability to keep this property as rates go a little bit higher, as the world tips into a recession, if it does? Do these things keep you up at night, or what's your approach on them?
Certainly a consideration. We were very lucky with the yield coming back. So right now it's positively geared. Obviously, if the bank raises rates, that'll bring it closer to being neutral. But we're continuing our savings program. So if a little bit of that needs to go into holding on to it until rates come back down or the rent goes up at the next year, that'll be fine. We can do that. So we've got an offset account. There was a little bit of money left over from our savings that is just sitting in there. So that will keep things bubbling along nicely for the foreseeable future, without the necessity to be inputting buckets of cash just to hold on to it. So the high yield, high growth approach that we have there is pretty sensational.
Yeah, you don't need to make trade-offs, right? Like gone are those days where you have to buy negatively geared properties because that's the only thing that grows. Like you got positive cash flow, high growth, not in just the long term but short term, and the fact that it has subdivision potential and it's fully renovated at the moment. I mean, I wasn't buying properties like this good when I was starting. So yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Duane, maybe what's your best piece of advice for like someone who's watching who maybe is in your shoes from like 4 months ago before you did the course? Maybe they were ripped off before, or maybe they had unsavory experiences. What's your best advice for them in terms of approaching property investing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, the course has been fantastic for boosting my confidence. Obviously there's two of us in this partnership, and one was a little less keen than I was. And the argument that got that across the line was, look, if we got, for argument's sake, a $300,000 property, and the course managed to increase the growth by 2%, it's paid off in a year. The course itself, and I think it's going to do a lot better than that compared to what we could do on our own. So getting into the course, doing just the action steps each time, do the module, do the action steps, do the module, do the action steps, and the confidence will come. That was my experience, and I believe that, as I said, I knew that I needed education. I knew that I didn't have the knowledge to do it myself, and so I would recommend it to anybody. In fact, I have. So.
No, that's really cool. Thank you for that. And I mean, the biggest thing, whether people do the course or not, is that you should take action, whether it's with me or with someone else or by yourself. The biggest thing is taking action, and that's what you've done, because without action, like there's nothing. So yeah, congratulations, Duane. And thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. It's been awesome.
Um, Thank you so much as well, guys, for watching. Hopefully that was really valuable. There was some really good gold nuggets that Duane shared. And once again, like I said before, level up your knowledge. Like Duane mentioned, he needed education. I know so many of you think that you need education. Start with free education before you pay for anything. And for that, I have a Facebook group and also a podcast. I'll leave the links below. But if you have any questions for me or for Duane about his own experience, leave it in the comments below. I will definitely jump in and try to answer them. And yeah, there's like almost 100 of these member or client interviews now. So go through them. Like, even if you're not doing the course, like, just, get inspired, get educated. That's all that I can say. Because the grass is, you could say, not always greener. But in this case, sometimes the grass is a little bit greener. So go for it, go hard and back yourself. And once again, Duane, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.